Right, welcome everybody. I'll officially open Bain's Cabinet meeting for Thursday the 13th of July. Welcome everybody and all those watching online as well. Just a reminder for everybody to switch off their mobile phones to silent. I'll do that myself. That's a very useful tip. Just a quick statement. This Cabinet meeting is being filmed and recording will be available on the Council's website. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Anybody speaking who does not wish to be filmed should make themselves known to the camera operator beforehand. This is a bit of an unusual agenda item, but I'm aware that Mr. Bentley has... Miss Bentley, sorry, I apologise. Miss Bentley has to leave shortly, so I'm going to invite Miss Bentley to give a public statement now.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the work of your Democratic Services officers in respect of this as well, and I want to put my thanks on record. I'm speaking today about the proposal to close the vast majority of ticket office provisions that are currently provided within the Weka Combined Authority area, and I want people to understand that this is a very serious issue. We have to consider whether or not this is actually something that undermines our ability to deliver an effective public transport or service for our region, one that we can be proud of. Much is being said currently with respect to this, and I'm not going to repeat the words of other people in respect of that, but I want to give you a personal impression as to why we cannot allow ourselves to go down this road. I have been attacked, I have been victimised, I have been acted upon very abusively by individuals at unstaffed railway stations around this country by shutting me out from actually having effective and affordable means to travel around this region. You will be affecting not just me, but literally thousands of people, all in a similar situation to myself, where our lifestyle, our nature, our conditions are actually making us vulnerable to people who act abusively in these kinds of situations. And we need to start effectively reversing the transport cuts that have actually been made. And given the large amount of funding that is going into our regional rail infrastructure in the Weka area, I want BAF to write a letter, I want Baines to write a letter in respect of Section 17 to the Secretary of State, asking whether or not an equalities impact assessment has actually been conducted in respect of this. As of yet, we have had no indication that that has actually been the case, and I want to ensure that people are able to travel by whatever means they see necessary across our region with safety, and are able to actually provide those services, have those services provided for them that mean that they can do all of the very important things that they have to do in their own personal lives. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Robbie, and thank you for your statement. And please pass on my regards to David as well. Yeah. Thank you very much. Right. I will ask the Cabinet members to introduce themselves, and we'll go around the room, so I'll start with Councillor Warren, please.
Councillor Sarah Warren, Cabinet Lead for Climate Emergency and Sustainable Transport, and Councillor for Bath Avon North Ward.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Bourne.
Hello, Councillor Alison Bourne, Councillor for Widcombe and Lincoln Ward, and Lead for Adult Services and Public Health.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Paul May. I'm the Councillor for Whitchurch and Penswood, Whitchurch Village and Penswood, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Ball.
Yeah, Councillor Tim Ball, Whitton Ward, Cabinet for Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Rigby.
Evening, everybody. Councillor Amanda Rigby, Bathwick Ward Councillor and Cabinet Member for Highways.
Thank you, Mandy. Councillor Wood.
Dave Wood, Councillor for Mendip Ward, and Deputy Leader with responsibility for Council priorities and delivery.
Thank Councillor McCabe.
Councillor Matt McCabe, Bath Avon South Ward, Cabinet Member for the Built Environment and Sustainable Development.
Thank you. Councillor Roper.
Yes, good evening. Councillor Paul Roper of Kingsmead Ward, Cabinet Member for Economic and Cultural Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Elliott.
Mark Elliott, Councillor for Lansdowne and Cabinet Member for Resources.
Thank you, Mark. Right, emergency evacuation procedure. Right.
If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside Brown's Restaurant.
Thank you, Marie. Right, apologies for absence. There are none. Declaration of interest, I have seen none. Are there any from the floor? No, thank you. Urgent business agreed by the Chair. I invite Councillor Warren to make a statement regarding bus services.
Thank you. So as many residents are aware, several essential bus services in North East Somerset have now stopped running due to an ongoing funding crisis, including services 82, 179, 768, and further services are currently at risk. I want to provide an urgent update on the work that we're doing to address this situation. The West of England Combined Authority is the regional transport authority responsible for planning bus services in cooperation with local bus operators. The Combined Authority has a budget of many tens of millions dedicated solely to transport and to economic development. Bath and North East Somerset Council pays an annual contribution towards the provision of supported services, those that are not deemed financially viable, through the Regional Transport Levy. In this financial year, we have increased our contribution by 30% to £1 million, recognising the significant increases in costs to provide bus services. Unfortunately, however, the prices of our bus services increased by around 200%. Like other councils, Baines has no significant funding for buses over and above that which is already transferred annually to WECA as our transport levy. The remainder of our budget is fully committed to other purposes, which include statutory services that we cannot choose to withdraw, such as social care, children's services, which together consume the vast majority of our budget, housing, parks, waste management, libraries, and so on. So there's very little remaining for discretionary expenditure, such as on buses. We now need the Metro Mayor to contribute a portion of the £57 million of bus service improvement grant that he received from government specifically and solely for bus services on our lost and at-risk services, as the Secretary of State has indicated he should. Other local authorities who are not part of the West of England Combined Authority have been able to do this, including North Somerset and Gloucestershire. In the new year, we were informed that the Metro Mayor planned to commission several new rural buses throughout North East Somerset. The 522, which was designed without consultation with us by the West of England Combined Authority, was introduced and takes far longer than previous buses, travelling through areas with good bus services rather than villages with none. The Mayor also decided to put a large proportion of his bus service improvement plan funding into the Westlink Demand Responsive Transport, or DRT, service. As many residents have found, DRT in its current form is not working. Westlink has proved unreliable and hard to access, and as the vehicles are usually seen almost empty, must be costing much more per passenger journey than the bus services they replaced, and that residents are desperate to see returned. The Mayor has also chosen this month to commit some £8 million to free travel on buses for residents in the month of their birthday. This birthday bonanza is of huge benefit to Bristolians with frequent bus services, but is a further insult to our more rural residents, having recently lost all access to public transport and some now newly confined to their homes. Residents in North East Somerset have been left with a public transport service which simply isn't working. Some communities with frequent bus services and others with none. This is a deeply unsatisfactory situation, and residents of all ages are impacted. To address this desperate situation, my team and I have spent the last few months talking to both Baines and parish councillors from across North East Somerset cabinet leads from neighbouring councils, bus experts, campaigners and residents, as well as to the Metro Mayor and his staff. We have developed a proposal that provides a cost-effective solution to improve local services. Key elements of the proposal are targeted new bus routes to help reconnect towns and villages that have been abandoned by the Metro Mayor. Additional Westlink services along fixed routes at key commute and school times to build trust in the new service and to support other services. Funding solutions, including working with neighbouring councils on cross-boundary routes. These proposals will safeguard threatened buses and fill gaps where services have been lost, connecting communities with Bath and Bristol and between larger towns and villages in Baines. We are very keen to work with the Metro Mayor to find a solution. This week, Councillor Guy has written to him to put our innovative ideas forward, and we hope he will respond positively to our constructive proposals. We encourage members of the public who are concerned about bus services to write to the Metro Mayor to ask for his support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Right, we'll move to questions from the public and from councillors. There have been 14 questions from councillors. There have been 15 questions from the public. I can ask a councillor to ask a supplementary question. There's only Robin here that submitted a question. You want a supplementary question, Robin?
Supplementary on the water quality. Is the Cabinet member aware that the Environment Agency are not great when it comes to either responding to any concerns or acting on those concerns? And I hope, like me, that they share concern and also our role as a community leader on what is a potential health crisis.
The Cabinet member like to respond?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I am very much aware, Robin, of the Environment Agency's failure to act when it should act at times. The Council does not have budgets to actually act in a particular matter. I will go away and research this a bit further and come back to you. Hopefully we can actually assist with some monitoring going forward. But I have to find the budget first.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Thank you, Robin, for that. Right, we'll move on to statements and petitions from the public. Could I ask Chad Allen, please? Chad here? No, he's not, is he? No. Okay. We can add him to the bottom in case he arrives late. Joy Arnold, statement on loss of 179 bus route. So I just give that you've got 3 minutes, and take your time and start whenever you're ready.
Never done this before, but here it goes. Good evening, everyone. I've been asked by our ward councillor, Fiona Gorley, if I would explain how the loss of our local bus service has affected me personally. I am Joy Arnold. I lived in Tunley for 60 years, during which this time we have always had a bus service to and from Bath and onwards to Timsbury and Porton. The loss of the 768 and 179 bus service is a real problem for me. A few months ago I lost my husband, who had always driven his car, which provided us with transport for John to get to work, but regrettably I never learnt to drive. I used the local bus service for getting to and from work into Bath, and since retirement I have continued using the bus service to Bath to meet my overnights, go swimming, hospital appointments, visits and to the bank, etc. My daughter takes me in her car to go shopping once a week. I'm afraid my experience with Westlink service has not been good. It is not reliable and is therefore of no use when you have to keep appointments such as doctors, dentists, hospital, etc. A week ago I rang Westlink at 9:30 a.m. and the bus picked me up in Tunley at 9:55 to take me to Odd Down Park and Ride. The driver said either him or another bus would pick me up at the Park and Ride at 12:20. I went into Bath on the Park and Ride bus, returning on the Park and Ride at 11:55 in plenty of time for my 12:20 pickup. No Westlink minibus has arrived by 1:20. Unfortunately, I realised I had left my mobile phone at home. I asked the coach driver if he would kindly ring my daughter at work and asked her to come and pick me up. Her boss was understanding and sent one of his van drivers out to take me home. I tried ringing Westlink when I got home, but I only had continuous music. By now I'd had enough and gave up. What should have been a 15-minute bus ride home ended up taking me an hour and a half. Lucky enough, the weather was in my favour. When I was waiting in the bus station for the Park and Ride bus, there were 4 buses, 172, 173, 174 and the 522, waiting in the Peasdown and Wells bus lane. We need a reliable bus service working to a timetable and a dedicated bus stop for Westlink at the Park and Ride. My friend and another lady in the village had a similar experience with Westlink. Their driver was eventually located having his lunch in Keynsham. I hope you will be able to persuade Dan Norris to restore our subsidy of the 768 and the 179 bus service. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really important, and I'll make sure I pass that on to the Metro Mayor. Thank you very much. Move on to Paul Rolls, please.
Evening, everybody. I just want to start off by saying this is not an the Royal Theatre statement I'm going to make. I'm actually for the Royal Theatre. I live right there in Rosewell Court, have been since 2014. Chairman of the Residents Association. I started 5 years ago. In the time that I've actually been living in Rosewell Court, the pavement on the Monmouth Street side, the south side of the road, which is at the back of the theatre, for the trucks to come in to actually put the scenery into the back of the theatre, it has to go up over the pavement. Now, 1 year ago, at a cost of £15,000, which I've got the numbers from Highways Department on the cost, they replaced that. This was replacing something that was replaced probably 10 years ago, which was driveway blocks, but that would all have gone like this because of the weight. Right now, I think all of you got this statement, but I counted just before I came just to make sure I got the right number. There is now 50 pavement slabs that are cracked, and they're not just cracked, they're cracked and broken. There's a health and safety issue here. Again, they also block off from Thursday to a Monday morning. They take 7 parking spots, which is also loss of revenue for the council. And I've been told by Highways that they are going to replace them. They were supposed to do it before the election, but they said we'll have to wait till after, whatever. But it's going to be at the council's cost. Well, my question is, why is the council paying for this? This is surely criminal damage. They're going up on the pavement at least 4 times a week, once on a Saturday night when they take the old scenery out, and then that truck leaves, and there's another truck literally parked there, brings new scenery in, and then they do the same on the Monday. So again, this is 4 times a week that it's going over. I have videos, I have photographs, videos of them literally going up over. A couple of times they've hit the front of our building as well. And again, why should the taxpayers, council taxpayers of Bath pay, and why should the council pay when they're doing this criminal damage all the time? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I fully agree. Why should we be paying? Yeah. No. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll look into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is Nicolette Boter. Miss Boter.
Thank you, Chair. I speak as a citizen of Bath, whose triple passions are creating thriving, resilient places, regenerating socio-economic systems, and empowering collaboration. I'm also chair of the Bath Area Forum. I'm delighted to be speaking to this ambitious, strongly mandated administration on a visionary corporate strategy to tackle the massive ecological and societal challenges coming our way. For I want to ensure that this strategy delivers, and especially in regard to what I see as its Achilles heel, namely ensuring disadvantaged and less well-connected citizens are able and empowered to work with the council in addressing their concerns. For the themes and action priorities supporting the Giving People a Better Say, as yet, are deficient and need to go beyond just sort of complying with the minimum statutory equality requirements, and actually rigorously ensure that all citizens are represented in decision-making processes and actions. I'm also impatient with the linear, mechanistic presentation of the policies, themes and priorities in the strategy. For the problems besetting us are systemic, contextual and interconnected, and so they need to be co-considered, co-addressed and outcomes multiply and diversely evaluated. And not only does a good picture speak louder than words, it also broadens the locus for collaboration, behaviour change and emergent solutions. So, why do we citizens have to wait to the penultimate page of the strategy, the draft strategy, for a reference to the donut, when officers and anchor institutions have been talking about it amongst themselves for at least a year? Why have less connected or affiliated citizens and communities been excluded from your work with partners to identify key challenges for our area and shared outcomes? And whose ambition, or lack of it, is being furthered in the new economic development strategy currently being worked on by a board comprising anchor institutions? Bring on Deal's regenerative and distributive decision wheel indeed, and let us all join the party in the space for local communities and organisations to collaborate and innovate, linked to the core policy of giving people a bigger say. For the more people that are connecting and collaborating, the better our shared future will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your statement. We'll move on to Councillor Romero, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, Cabinet. I'm here tonight to ask you to confirm your commitment to vocational education on the Culver Hay school site, and at the same time, as it is the same site, to confirm that you do wish to see the swimming pool reopened. With regards to the school, I am aware that there are plans for both primary and secondary alternative provision to be brought together in a new building, replacing several of the standalone buildings. This I supported as Cabinet Member, and I will continue to do so. However, this should not be the limits of this administration's ambition. Despite a commitment within the Lib Dems manifesto of 2023, and indeed from 2019, the future for the main part of the site still is unclear. We know that there are education inequalities within our population. Some of these are generational. We know that the current, mostly academic education offer is not right for every child. We also know we need to build up a skilled workforce for the future, in particular in green and renewable industries. So I hope you will work with Bath College to see all of these ambitions come true and to bring vocational education to Culver Hay. As Councillor May is very aware, the college has been working over a number of years and a number of administrations on a proposal for vocational education at Culver Hay for children from the age of 14. The college has asked for certainty from the council on Culver Hay, and without this firm assurance, potential capital investment and so the project itself could be at risk. So please let the college know that we are committed to vocational education at Culver Hay. While I'm talking about Culver Hay, I also ask that this administration looks at reopening the swimming pool. Swimming is a life skill, as well as a great form of exercise for many more people than other high-impact sports, and so should be accessible for all. The city centre pool and the one in Keynsham are not near enough to be a viable choice for many local families on low incomes or for older people, and so now, with Culver Hay shut, they no longer go swimming at all. It is well known that swimming pools are expensive to run, since they have high energy bills. It is true, few make money, but I would hope that improving the health of the residents in one of the more deprived parts of Bath would counter a purely financial argument. Culver Hayes aged boilers are well past their best, so you could use this as a chance to try something new and radical and showcase your commitment to green energy. Why not create a self-sufficient system to heat the pool, a system which is reliant entirely on renewable energy? Maybe you will create enough energy to heat and power the rest of the building. If you open the pool and properly promote the sports facilities, you could address in a meaningful way the health inequalities in the area. You have a golden opportunity to do better for the population in the southwest of the city and for future generations across Bath. You will need a vision for long-term economic, social and health improvements, and this will be over many years and probably generations. Will you commit to doing everything you can to enable vocational education at Culver Hay? Will you also commit to addressing health inequalities where it is needed and so commit to reopen the swimming pool? I hope so. And I invite Councillor May to provide the Children and Adults Wellbeing and Health PDS panel with an update.
I've given you 51 seconds over your 3 minutes, sorry.
Okay, I was watching for a light to come on and none ever did. So to provide the panel with an update in September. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mayor. Yeah, and thank you for restating our Lib Dem commitment to bringing education back to the Culver Hay site. Thank you very much. Mr. Baldwin, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps I should explain before you press the button and start me off. Within my text, there's a number of quotations. I'm not going to read out the source of those quotations, so apologies to the several thousand who are listening in who won't necessarily realise what the sources are, but I think everybody who's going to listen in is in attendance.
I'm sure only a couple of thousand will turn off.
Exactly. So good evening and thank you.
Press your button, sorry.
Yes.
Good evening and thank you. This evening, Cabinet, you will be asked to approve the draft corporate strategy for 2023 to 2027. Key areas such as the general condition of our public realm, the level and quality of support we give to the more distressed members of our community, and the quality, speed and effectiveness of our response to the impending climate crisis all require not just repetition, but new focus. Time to press the reset button. Within the context of both public realm and climate response improvements, our ability now to turbocharge and implement carefully selected but meaningful livable neighbourhoods, which bring real value to a particular local neighbourhood, but also to our city as a whole, is vitally important. A few pertinent quotations, some of which hopefully you recognise. We are a council that listens to residents and takes action. Livable neighbourhoods, sensitively implemented and effectively monitored, are achievable. The mandate you have should not be wasted. The LN genie is well and truly out of the bottle. Be brave in your implementation. The debate about LNs has never been merely about changes to traffic flows, but rather about a real vision of how we can make a positive difference to our city, its residents, its visitors, and as a consequence to its local businesses and local economy as a whole. We need that type of regeneration. We will continue to work with residents on designing and delivering meaningful improvements, such as reduced rat running and speeding through our Livable Neighbourhood programme. We have two core policies: tackling the climate and ecological emergency and giving people a bigger say. Detailed designs for 15 livable neighbourhoods are almost ready for publication. Our four values, bold, empowered, transparent and supportive, continue to underpin all of our work. So, your stated values act as a useful catalyst for a few questions. Bold. Why not introduce and energise officers and the executive to turbocharge a meaningful LN which will bring, by its location in a key central or near central location, real added value to a substantial local neighbourhood as well as to the city as a whole? Empowered. why not involve or empower that relevant community and its representatives in further developing, alongside key and appropriate officers, the ground-up concept that the community has already proactively designed. Transparent. When can the detailed designs for the stated almost ready for publication LN concepts be made available to the respective communities to which they relate? Supportive. Where local communities or particular catchment areas have already been proactive in delivering their own public realm improvements with the support of, often in fairness, very supportive Baines officers, why not now reciprocate in initiating a meaningful livable neighbourhood to underpin the work already commenced? And one final question, unrelated to the Council's stated values above: what criteria will be used to reprioritise the LN area candidates within the 15 designated in the Livable Neighbourhoods document of June 2021? I'm conscious I'm coming to an end. Cabinet, it will be more than disappointing and could be judged by some as less than satisfactory if we are unable to see at least the commencement and introduction of a substantive and meaningful livable neighbourhood by at least the last quarter of this year. Thank you for the extra time.
You're welcome, Mr. Wall. I gave you an extra 10 seconds than I gave to Councillor Romero, so yeah, they've all been extremely generous this evening. Thank you very much for your statement. No problem. Yeah, if the public speakers wish to leave, they may do so now before we move on to the papers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you. Right, I'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, which is the 9th of March 2023. I'm inviting people to confirm that those are a true record, a correct record. All in favour? Yep, that was here. Splendid. I will sign them now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9, considerations of single-member items are requisitioned by the Cabinet. There are none. Item number 10, consideration of matters referred to by policy development and scrutiny bodies. I invite Councillor Robin Moss as Chair of the Corporate PDS panel to speak on behalf of that panel. Councillor Moss, when ready.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that people have been circulated with the summary of the statements coming out of the PDS panel a couple of days ago, and I'd just like to emphasise a couple of elements within that. I think a theme of the contribution from panel members, and look at the Vice Chair across here, was concern about the cost of living crisis and how that is going to be impacting us over the next couple of years. And I just add an observation myself, and it's something I said at the panel and to Dave, that there are really, I suppose, three elements to a corporate strategy. There's first of all the internal stuff, if you like, our resources, our budget, our staff team and what the council can do. There's also the external forces that are in play that aren't necessarily within our control. And there's what I always call the Department for Unforeseen Consequences, which of course we saw in the last administration with COVID, and I think it's only fair to say that that was a crisis that we have a staff team and resources that actually faced up to really, really well and dealt with really well. But I think it's probably worth just saying about the external factors that we know that there is a cost of living crisis. We know that there is a potential impact of mortgage payment increases over the next year or so. And like me, Kevin, you were down at the Local Government Association conference last week down in Bournemouth. And usually LGA conferences are the opportunity for government ministers to make statements to local government about the issues that are facing local government. And I have to say, I don't know what your impression was, Kevin, but it was tumbleweed blowing down the middle of the roads. Michael Gove making a statement that sounded like he'd only just come into post 3 months ago, and he was shocked at what he finds. I mean, it was quite bizarre. And I think we just need to emphasise that as a local government, we are going to have to deal with the financial crisis, with the cost of living crisis, with seemingly no assistance from central government at all, apart from a statement from the Prime Minister about mortgage interest payments. Well, you'll have to deal with it. And maybe it should be a recommendation to our residents, so we should redefine ourselves all as, rather than individuals, we should call ourselves water companies. In that way, if we've got a financial crisis, we'll get some assistance. Having said that, I thank you to Dave and to Will for the statement they made about the corporate strategy, and look forward to how that rolls out in practice.
Thank you, Councillor Moss. Normally I don't allow PDS chairs to get too political, but I fully agree with everything you just said. Okay, moving on to item 12. So Councillor Wood for update progress and delivery of corporate strategy for 2020-2024 and annual performance report for 22-23. Councillor Wood.
Thank you. This is a moment to really reflect on the last 4 years and the incredible achievements this council and its staff has made against the backdrop of the COVID pandemic, rising inflation and other factors. Over that time, we've invested extra millions into road repairs and cleaner streets, starting to reverse a decade of cuts to local government. We've introduced the first charging CAS outside of London. We've invested in high streets in Midsummer Norton, in Keynsham and in Bath. We've sharply increased renewable energy in the district. We've achieved and sustained our best recycling rate ever. We've built more pedestrian crossings, segregated cycle lanes and 20-mile-an-hour zones than ever before, created the Chew Valley Recreational Trail, found new ways of engaging people through citizens' juries, created the first new social rent properties in a generation, built a state-of-the-art new recycling centre in Keynsham, with the first council in England to have adopted a net zero-based housing plan, and the list goes on. But these are the building blocks of future success as we embark on a historic second term that the voters have given us. This first administration was the first administration to prove itself worth being re-elected for another 4 years in the history of Bath and North East Somerset Council. This speech was about our record of action, and on the next item I'll go on to talk about our promise of more.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I'll ask Councillor Bourne to second, please.
Thank you. As has been noted, this systematic approach to planning and performance was introduced by the previous Liberal Democrat administration. It has provided a structure for articulating our aims and our planned programmes of work. It has increased transparency and accountability to the residents we serve. Our clear guiding principle is to improve people's lives, and this report accounts for progress across our services. When developing the strategy for our first term, we were not expecting to spend 2 years in the grip of an unprecedented global pandemic that had a massive impact on people's lives. But the authority responded well to that challenge. We continued to deliver services throughout the pandemic, supporting residents and businesses and adapting to meet changing needs and circumstances. Our focus during the height of the pandemic was to protect, contain and mitigate the impact of the emergency and to lay the foundations for an effective and sustainable recovery. The 22-23 performance report provides information on the extent of that recovery and demonstrates the success of that strategy. I'm going to focus particularly on actions we have taken to meet the needs of vulnerable people. We've continued to invest in social care and are now supporting significantly more looked after children, with many more on child protection plans. Our Connecting Families service has continued to provide effective support for families with complex needs, and our children's services were rated good by a recent Ofsted inspection. We have increased support to local third sector groups through the Community Contribution Fund and through targeted use of Community Infrastructure Levy funds. We have responded positively and robustly to issues in local care homes, ensuring rapid improvements. We have worked with the community to welcome refugees to the area and have provided support and warm spaces to help residents deal with the cost of living crisis. We have provided free internet access at council libraries. Our public health services responded very well throughout the pandemic, helping to keep local residents safe. They have also invested in social prescribing and other preventative measures that aim to improve the health and well-being of the local population. This is not an exhaustive list, and it is not the end of the story. We plan to build on this progress over the current term, and I'm happy to second this motion and support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne. I will move to the Councillor Bourne. I will move to the debate, and I've got Councillor Ball who would like to speak. Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Listening to Councillor Wood and Councillor Bourne, as a resident, I would say, wow. We've delivered over the pandemic, delivered services, council on straight and narrow path, going forward, and your leadership, Mr. Leader, we are back in control of the council with increased majority here. Bringing the plans forward of resident support and actually want to see delivered. It's an outstanding achievement. What's more so, against the appalling opposition we had last time as well, who couldn't basically even challenge us now. Councillor Moss, you now look forward to a constructive opposition. I'm sure he's going to provide it. Take us down when we got it wrong, but actually make sure he turns in the right direction. Really thinks we're halfway there. I'm sure he will do so, but I think it's a standing delivery so far. Let's continue it the next 4 years to ensure our residents actually receive the benefits of this.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Anybody else? Councillor McCabe. Sorry, don't fight over who wants to compliment ourselves first. I'll let Councillor May go on now.
Thank you, Chair. You've forgotten my name already. I just, this is a strategy, and today, with Councillor Moss here and Councillor Roper, we've seen a reality of how that's actually been implemented in Radstock. It was opened by Paul Roper, a footbridge to the school, which is important for me, for children's services, but also for the community. A new housing estate was built, and it's taken years to get that footpath actually approved. And, great credit to everybody, because we talk about improving people's lives. It means parents are not getting in their car and driving around to the school. The children can go over the footbridge into the school. It's a real safety issue, and I think it's an example that we're talking about not just improving people's lives, but pulling together the issue around climate control and issues like that, which I think is really, really important. So it's just a small example, but when we talk about strategies, it's also about how we're acting as a council jointly together to actually improve people's lives.
Thank you, Chair. Excellent example of Lib Dems delivering on the ground. Brilliant, well done. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm considering how much this leadership and administration has achieved over the last 4 years in very difficult circumstances. I'm very honoured to be joining the Cabinet from my previous assistant role. And I just wanted to flag up that our planning team, one of the many teams in the Council of dedicated officers, had been particularly under pressure during the pandemic, but they've pulled through and have won 2 awards, for RTPI Southwest Awards, Planning Authority of the Year, and an award for planning excellence. So I think Councillor Ball was the Cabinet member last year for the year that they've won it, and I believe he's passed on his congratulations. I would like to add mine as a new Cabinet member with this responsibility. So congratulations to those officers.
Thank you, Councillor. I couldn't agree more, and well done to Councillor Ball. Councillor Warren.
Yeah, it was just to add a bit more detail to some of the points that Councillor Wood raised. So, of course, we declared a climate and an ecological emergency, and we developed a climate emergency strategy and an ecological emergency action plan, which have come forward, and in the coming administration we'll be looking to implement a lot more of those. But in terms of our award-winning planning team, I was particularly pleased with the local plan partial update, which made us, as Councillor Wood said, not only the first council in the country to require net zero new build, but also one of the first councils to introduce a requirement for net gain of biodiversity through the planning process. And another particular highlight for me was the outcome of becoming the first charging clean air zone outside London, which has resulted in a more than 20% reduction in nitrogen dioxide levels, both within and outside the city, compared to 2019, and we can look forward to further improvement when the results for 2022 are released in a couple of months' time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Warren. I just look to add and my personal thanks to the officers. Delivery is impossible of all these amazing things that we've been talking about. That's just a fraction of the few things. It's impossible without hard-working council staff, and they do an amazing job. And it just shows, and we've been rewarded with an increased majority because of those excellent things we've been doing. We weren't being negative, we weren't talking our city down, we were actually getting on with delivering things, and we've been rewarded with that, and let's have 4 more years of that. Councillor Wood, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to add.
Excellent. I'll move to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to item 13, which is the corporate strategy. Councillor Wood.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. So the corporate strategy, it might not sound like the most exciting topic, but for those watching on YouTube, now is not the time to go and make a cup of tea. The corporate strategy is a framework for what the Council will deliver for residents over the course of the next 4 years. It brings together what you've told us is important, what you voted for in the recent election in May, and integrates this into the Council's plans and the way the Council makes its decisions. Listening to residents and acting on their concerns is our commitment. We'll find new ways to reach residents, to find out your views and your priorities. We'll work with communities to identify local priorities, the priorities that people really care about. Our area working will ensure the Council thinking is joined up and focuses on local communities. We also commit to improving the continuity of improving to frontline services. As I mentioned earlier, services declined over a decade of central government cuts to local government, but over the last 4 years, we've proudly started to reverse those cuts. Millions extra invested in road repairs and cleaner streets is one example, as I mentioned. We will continue to improve frontline services, and we all will take pride in our area. We'll also continue to put climate at the heart of everything that we do, and we'll use an evidence-based approach to ensure that all of our decisions are helping us on the journey to net zero. But I'd like to thank the residents of Bath and North East Somerset for trusting us and for giving the Lib Dems a historic second term in control of the Council and with an increased majority. We will repay that trust by listening to you and focusing on the issues that matter to you the most.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Ask Councillor Warren to second, please.
Thank you. This evening I'm proud to support this corporate strategy. It's the first time ever that an administration in Bath and North East Somerset has been entrusted by voters with a second term to really embed their policies. And it will be an opportunity to double down on action on the climate and ecological emergencies that were declared over the last 4 years. This month, the world has repeatedly recorded the hottest day since records began, and it follows the UK's warmest year on record. Lord Deben, chair of the Committee on Climate Change, told the Prime Minister a fortnight ago that the UK has lost its clear global climate leadership, and that game-changing interventions from the US and Europe, which will turbocharge growth of renewables, are leaving the UK behind. The situation also remains serious for nature. The Department for Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs published biodiversity indicators for the UK last December, which showed declines since 2015 in biodiversity of marine life, of habitats and species of European importance, of wild birds, and of pollinating insects. Bearing in mind, of course, that the natural world provides our food, our clean air and water, and ultimately disposes of our waste. The same report also shows declining investment in biodiversity over the same period. It's in this context of an ambivalent UK government that has lost interest in developing net zero industries, backtracked on fossil fuel commitments, and whose progress the Climate Change Committee has criticised as too slow and lacking urgency, that it is beholden now on local government to show leadership. And that is what Bath and North East Somerset's corporate strategy aims to do for the next 4 years. We are in no doubt that we will be delayed and stymied at times by lack of government support. For instance, by restrictive national planning rules, by government prevarication around support for making homes energy efficient, by a profit-led bus industry, by an inadequate electricity grid, by transport ministers actively undermining our efforts to enable walking, wheeling and cycling, and by government's failure to control airport expansion, to mention just a few. Nevertheless, I am proud that our latest corporate strategy shows a clear determination that Bath and North East Somerset Council will continue to do all within our power to provide the support to enable our community to be carbon neutral and nature positive by 2030. Over the next 4 years, we will further embed these values into all of our decision making, which will be made in the context both of an understanding of the environmental limits of our planet and overlaid on a social and economic foundation, aiming to provide support for residents when government cuts and the cost of living crisis impact them, in line with the principles of donut economics. So I'm delighted to second the recommendation this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Very well said. Councillor, move to the debate. Councillor Ball.
Listen to Councillor Warren, we're scared now because of the government's lack of activity and anything at all. I've waited 40 years, being a former Liberal Party member since 1985, today to see a Liberal Democrat administration delivering for the people. I go back to David Steele's times, put some of the paper in politics, those that don't even remember it, that you're on the street, you're talking to residents, you're working with residents, you're collaborating with residents. David Penhaligon, before him, was very much a street campaigner. The Liberal Democrats in Bath and North East Somerset are street campaigners. We work with residents on the ground. We have a tough agenda to deliver, and to the public out there, we will not flinch in delivering on your behalf. Even in wards where we don't hold councillors, there's very few now, we will work for the residents, up the opposition councillors as well, to ensure we're delivering across the whole of Bath and North East Somerset Council. It's very important we keep focused. We will make mistakes on the way through, that's obvious, and we will be pulled up by the opposition members when we do not quite get it right. But it's very important we move forward this agenda now and deliver this. It's going to be tough, and don't believe it's not going to be tough, but we will get there.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. That's the end of the debate. I'll ask Councillor Wood to sum up.
Nothing really to add. I'd like to thank Councillor Warren and Councillor Ball, very passionate voices that we can feel coming through on climate and nature and working with residents, and those are the core things of what we're about. So I move.
Thank you. I'll move to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, this is where people can go and make a cup of tea. No, I'm only joking. Now, this is the Treasury Management and Action Report 22-23, and Councillor Elliott will give that report. Thank you.
On my thunder there, I was going to suggest that people didn't go for a cup of tea. Although Treasury Management sounds like it's going to be done, it's a key and important task of the Council. Just to provide some context for anyone who isn't familiar with the Council's annual reporting cycle, this is an information report on Treasury Management performance for the last year, in line with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Code of Practice, which does sound quite dull, but which requires the Council to approve an annual Treasury Management report within 6 months of the end of the financial year. So it's a backward-looking report detailing how the Council's savings and borrowing performed over the financial year from April 22 to March 23. Treasury management is obviously a vital part of the Council's financial activity, and whilst it can seem a dry topic, sound and successful Treasury management is a major part of the bedrock on which the Council's finances are built. Looking at our investment performance, the average rate of interest earned across the portfolio is 2.09%, but that obviously hides some volatility. It's important to remember that this period starts in April 22, when the economic environment was very different, prior to the disastrous period of Trussonomics and the kamikaze budget in the early autumn. Bank of England base rate increased to 4.25% from 7.75% over the year, with Bank of England interest rate action remaining robust in line with their remit for tackling inflation. This trend has continued, with rates rising to 5% following further increases, and inflationary pressures remained elevated. The average rate of return has continued to increase during the year from around 1% in April to just below 4% in March as the Bank of England base rate rises over the period fed through to our investments. The report highlights the impact on the investment market of persistent inflation, increasing interest rates, risk of recession and further economic problems which have led to a decrease in the valuation of the Council's strategic long-term investments, which reduced from 10.3 million to 8.8 million over the year. However, this change does not directly impact on the revenue position of the Council, as there is currently a statutory override in place, so that under current rules, any movement would only affect the revenue position if those investments were sold. And as these are long-term investments, that's not our intention. Turning to borrowing, at the end of the year, our total borrowing was 210 million, a reduction of around 9 million at the start of the year. This is because we didn't take out any new borrowing during the year, and obviously principal capital repayments continued on our Public Works Loan Board loans, and some shorter-term borrowing was repaid during the year because it reached maturity. Overall, an underspend of 2.8 million was achieved in respect of interest and capital financing as a result of higher than budgeted investment income, a delay in borrowing and savings on minimum revenue provision due to capital spend reprofiling. Finally, the report includes performance against all the indicators set in the Treasury Management Strategy and confirms that all these are within approved limits. I'd like to commend officers on both the production of the report and, more importantly, on their sound handling of the Council's investments over the period. So I move the recommendations in section 2 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Councillor McCabe to second, please.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm very happy to second this. I would just want to highlight two things, really. That was the unforgivable central government losing control of the economy last year, which has affected so many local authorities, some who are now in very deep trouble. So I think that this highlights the tremendous work done by officers over the last 12 months or so, and the engagement those officers have had with cabinet members to keep us informed of the situation, what's been going on, under the firm steering, guiding hand of the Chief Executive, who is always reminding me I can't spend any money. But I'm happy to second this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I've already promoted you to the Cabinet. So okay, thank you. Obviously, going for a cup of tea, jokes aside, sound financial management is one thing that the Liberal Democrats have managed to do over the last 4 years, balancing the books. COVID, worst financial crisis in 300 years, the ridiculous truss economics of and 10 years of a Tory government as well. So it's credit to the Cabinet, credit to the officers and credit to the Executive for being able to balance those books in ridiculously difficult financial circumstances. If there's no debate on that, I will ask Councillor to sum up. Sorry.
Nothing further to add.
Okay, I will move to the vote. All in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 15, Revenue and Capital Outturn Report for 22-23. I will ask Councillor Elliott to move.
So again, thank you, Chair. This is a backward-looking report, this time setting out the revenue and capital outturn for 22-23. In other words, it reports how the Council performed compared to the budget set out at the beginning of the year. The main headline here is the extremely positive news that the Council had a favourable outturn position of £60,000 in 22-23. In other words, we finished the year 60k better off than the budget predicted. This is all the more impressive given that at Q3 last year we were forecasting a 1.54 million negative position, and in Q2 that figure was well north of 4 million. So balancing the books has been made extremely difficult for everyone by the National Tory government's financial incompetence, with the current Sunak administration seeming unable to stop the rot started by Johnson and accelerated by Truss and Kwarteng, and that affects local government as much as it affects everyone else. It's nothing I can take credit for, of course, having only taken up this role in May, but I'd like to congratulate my predecessor, the officers and the previous Cabinet on their hard work in pulling that position back in line, despite the pressures outside their control. It demonstrates a really constructive, collaborative and positive approach to dealing with the financial pressures we, along with other local authorities, are facing. However, the overall figure does smooth over some significant variability between different services. The main pressure continued to be in children's services, which resulted in an over-budget position for that service of 5.4 million during the year. This was largely mitigated by increased income from both heritage and transport services, by reduced borrowing costs, by higher interest earned on cash balances, and by the release of corporate contingencies. The year-end position of uncommitted non-earmarked reserves was 12.6 million, which is in line with the risk assessed requirements agreed in the 22-23 budget report. The capital spend in 22-23 was 74 million against a budget of 107 million, giving a variance of 33 million. This is primarily because of the delivery time to complete some projects, moving them into future financial periods. The report seeks the Cabinet approval to the revenue carry-forwards of 148,000 to fund commitments that will now take place in 23-24 and to transfer the 60k net underspend to the revenue budget contingency reserve, which provides for future revenue pressures during the year which can't be mitigated by management action. So I'd like to thank our officers for the production of the report again and for their hard work throughout the year, and I move the recommendations set out in points 2.1 to 2.8 of the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I'll ask Councillor Rigby to second, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very pleased to second this report, and I endorse all that my colleague Councillor Elliott has just said. Firstly, I need to wholeheartedly echo his praise and thanks for all those who worked so hard to bring us in on budget. As he mentioned, you don't have to look too far to see examples of where local councils have not been able to do this. The quality of the reporting we get is also absolutely worth highlighting. We have the information made available to us in a timely fashion to be able to make the decisions we need to in order to claw back overspends or support income generation. And that bit, to me, is really important. We haven't managed to hit budget by stopping all activity and cutting it to the statutory bone. We've managed to hit budget whilst also delivering the vast majority of our priorities and what our community needs. Being able to deliver these commitments has also relied a lot on external funding and or grant applications, and I long for a return to a time when local government is adequately funded, does not have to burn up cycles of officer time in preparing speculative bids against changing criteria and forcing councils to compete against each other for resources in an inefficient and non-strategic way. It is entirely in the government's gift to choose to fund local councils correctly, and they have chosen not to do so. Whilst seconding this report, I want to give special thanks to the Highways team. Anyone who's tried to do personal construction work over the past year or so knows how both labour and material costs have rocketed. Highways work in the council has not been immune to these pressures, but a lot of good management and negotiation, we have managed to retain the best value we can for our residents and protected the income so necessary to the council's finances. Absolutely, we cannot take for granted that we have and will continue to come in on budget, but we can rest assured we have a great team who have delivered and are best placed to deliver again. I'm delighted to second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. I'll move to the debate. I'd just like to echo what Councillor Moss has picked up earlier. We attended the LGA conference and I spoke to dozens of leaders around the United Kingdom, and they are, of each political colour, they are suffering the same financial pressures, and the support given by central government is totally inadequate, particularly with regards to children's services. It is a voice shared by all political parties of all political colours, and I'm sure Councillor Moss would agree with that. It is genuinely appalling, and the central government need to act now and quickly to help with that. I'll ask Councillor Elliott to sum up.
Nothing further to add other than to agree with my colleagues on their comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to the vote. All in favour? Excellent, unanimous. Move to the last item of the evening. Is the Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring. Cash limits in April to June 23. Councillor Elliott to move.
I'm sure you're all getting bored of hearing from me by now, but rather than a backward-looking report, this one is a current in-year position comparing against this year's budget. It's designed to give an early review of budget performance using the first 2 months of financial data. This is to help us identify budget risks early. I mentioned in previous reports that our national Tory government's inability to get inflation under control, and UK inflation is still proving very stubborn, holding at around 8.7% for CPI, which is obviously affecting the cost of delivering council services. To cover an easier topic first, the 2023-24 capital programme is forecast to be 92.8 million against a budget of 95 million, so a small underspend. Whilst we want to see our capital programme proceeding according to plan, I don't think there's anything of serious concern here. With regard to the revenue budget, the current forecast at the end of the year has identified above budget pressures of 3.96 million. For context, that's against an overall revenue budget of just over 135 million, so just shy of 3% over budget. Whilst 3% might not sound like a lot, this is in the first 2 months of the financial year. There's absolutely no room for complacency, and we, the whole Cabinet, need to be working to bring this back in line as quickly as possible with our senior directors. The major part of the overage is down to continuing pressure on children's services, as Councillor Guy's just highlighted, which makes up 3.3 million of the forecast budget pressure. This is a national problem being faced by all councils across the country. Central government simply isn't providing enough funding into the system to cope with the constantly rising pressures in this area. There are also workforce pressures across council services, which is creating a reliance on higher cost agency staff, and we need to reduce that reliance as quickly as possible. On the upside, we've seen good income performance across our corporate budgets and chargeable services that's helping to mitigate some of the rising costs in other areas. I don't want to be too gloomy. Identifying the issue early in the financial year is a really good thing. I know the Council's leadership team are now working on financial recovery plans to bring us back into budget, and this will be reported back to Cabinet as part of our Q2 monitoring. I urge all Cabinet colleagues to continue to work closely with their senior directors and other senior leaders over the coming couple of months to quickly identify and then monitor mitigation plans for your individual portfolios. And remember that this could include revenue opportunities as well as savings. Whilst we're seeing particular pressures in one portfolio, getting the budget back on track is something for all of us to pull together to resolve. I'll finish with thanks again to officers both in the Finance Department and across the Council. We have a great team, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts in less than ideal financial conditions. I move the recommendations listed in items 2.1 to 2.4 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor May to second.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to second this item, specifically address the children's services pressures. The previous Council Resources Cabinet made it clear on behalf of the Liberal Democrats that we would be transparent about Council budgets and monitoring, so it's essential for the public that we manage and show pressures where they exist at the earliest stage possible. Baines Children's Services is respected and well run, being rated as good across all services by Ofsted at our latest inspection and confirmed recently by them in their annual assessment. The predicted overspend is in addition to the additional support given in the approved council budget of this year. We deal with the most vulnerable children in our community, and the work of our staff to support them and their families is something to admire. The forecast is based upon the Conservative government allocating non-resident unaccompanied asylum-seeking children to local authorities. We welcome them, but the funding does not reflect their needs. Their status takes years to resolve by the Home Office, so as they become adults at the age of 18, our legal requirements to continue until the age of 25. We have no control over this system, and it creates officer and financial pressures at a time increasing needs of our local families following the pandemic. This is not just a local pressure, and national discussions are taking place, which you've reflected earlier on. There are two other main drivers of this over-budget position. One is the demand-led placement and package budgets, and the other is the increasing pressure from ongoing costs increasing across the home-to-school transport, which is picked up by the cost of everything that takes place. The service continues to look at all of its costs, and that's a responsibility I'll be working with Councillor Elliott, and pressures to minimise the long-term revenue increases. But I welcome the openness of our system to report things so early, and I think that's an important issue for us all and be proud of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I couldn't agree more. I'll open for the debate. Councillor Ball.
Yes, I think it's very useful to point out that the last 12 years, 8 years, have had Liberal Democrat led finances. Start back with this race with Councillor McMillan and Councillor Bellotti, and of our own first, we worked making sure council money is invested to bring forward investments which still happen today. We had Councillor Samuel in the last administration, who was very astute with financial abilities to ensure, he worked with Officer collaboratively to ensure we actually delivered budgets that were on target. And we haven't missed one as Liberal Democrats yet. The Conservative administrations have spoken mirror budgets several times I've seen in the past years. We don't have those. I'm looking forward to 4 years of Councillor Elliott actually delivering in the same vein. I'm sure he's going to. He'll be telling Cabinet members you can't have the money because I haven't got it. And I expect to have that conversation several times with him and be told to go and find the money somewhere. I'm sure we will do. But I think we need to thank our predecessors for the prudent financial situation we are in today.
Councillor McCabe. Thank you, Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've heard some of the detail about the budgetary pressures looking ahead. I just want to assure anybody watching and residents that we are focused on addressing this, and I think our council house building programme that we have put in our manifesto and is there in the reports we've seen earlier, and also our supported housing programme will be specifically able to address some of these budgetary pressures. So then it's just a question of how fast we can bring these things on. So it is an ambitious, we go back to what we started with, it's ambitious, but I do support this report, and I do thank officers for the early heads up.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. We have amazing departments in the council, particularly around children's services and adult services. They do an exceptionally good job. The financial department often get overlooked, and we've got Andy Rothery, who's our head financial officer, and I know you'll probably be shy, but I think personal thanks should go to him and his team for genuinely doing an amazing job so we can help the most vulnerable in our society. So yeah, big thank you from the whole Cabinet to that team. Thank you very much. I'll move, Councillor, to sum up, please.
Yeah, just to say thank you to colleagues for their observations. And I say, I don't want to be too gloomy about the situation. It's really good that we've identified things early. If you look at last year, it was actually 2 or 3 months later than this that we were identifying problems, and we still pulled it back into shape by the end of the year, so I'm confident we'll do the same again this year.
Thank you. I'll move to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for attending, everyone that spoke today, everybody for watching on YouTube, and I will close the meeting. Thank you very much.